Do you ever feel like you are not quite understood by other people? Have you ever feel like you don't really have many friends who you can call best friends or real friends? Do people seldom ever tell you that they seriously enjoyed speaking with you? If yes, so the first thing you have to understand is that you were not born socially handicapped. The reason your social skills are not that great is simply because you haven't given yourself enough time to learn and practice communication skills. Welcome to Moti Vibes channel. Effective communication is one of the most important life skills that a person can have. Whether you want to have better conversations in your personal and social life, or get your ideas across better at work. So in this video, I will help you to develop your communication skills over Dr. Jordan Peterson. He is a clinical psychologist and professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, and he worked as an associate professor in the psychology department at Harvard University. So watch this video until the end, because I will give you some key tips you can do to help improve your communication skills. And after watching this video and all the tips I outlined, with practicing, you will become a better communicator instantly.
I'm incredibly nervous to talk in front of you because you've got to be one of the most formidable people that I've ever heard of or ever listened to or ever seen. So my question is, again, you're one of the best communicators that I've ever listened to. If I could be half as good at you or at communicating as you are, I would be set. How can I teach myself to do that?
Practice. Really, well, there's a couple of things. It helps to read a lot. It really helps to write. So if you want to make yourself articulate, which is a very good idea, then not only should you read, but you should write down what you think. And if you can do that a little bit every day, 15 minutes, maybe you could steal 15 minutes and do it every day. But if you do that for 10 years, you really straighten out your thinking. If you're going to speak effectively, you have to know way more than you're talking about. So this is often difficult for beginning lecturers at university because they'll do a lecture on a topic, but they only know as much as they're saying in the lecture. And they get kind of stuck to their notes because of it. But you want to know 10 times as much as you are saying in the lecture, and then you can specify a stepping path through it and elaborate with the other things that you know. But to do that, you have to do a lot of reading. But you also have to do a lot of reading because that's where the synthesizing comes. So that's on the input side. And then on the output side, well, there's some techniques, let's say, is like if you're speaking in front of a group, you are not delivering a talk to a group. That's not what you're doing. The talk isn't a packaged thing that you present to a group. There isn't a group. There's a bunch of individuals, and you talk to them. So when I talk to a group, I always talk to people one at a time. And that makes it easier too, because you know how to talk to a person. It's like, can you talk to 1,000 people? Well, probably not, because it's too intimidating. But there isn't 1,000 people there. There's 1,000 individuals. And so you just look at an individual and you say something, and you can tell if they're engaged. They look confused, or they look interested, or they look angry, or they look bored, or maybe they're asleep, in which case you look at someone else. And they give you feedback about how you're doing. And so one thing is to have something to say, yeah, but the next thing is pay attention to who you're talking to. Because unless you're very badly socialized, and that seems unlikely in your case because you present yourself at least moderately well, and well, I mean, I don't know you very well, but on first sight, you're doing fine. So the probability that if you pay attention to the individuals that you're talking to, that your natural wealth of social skill will manifest itself is extremely high. And so you don't deliver a talk to an audience. That's a really bad way of thinking about it. You're actually engaged in a conversation with an audience. Even if they're not talking, they're nodding and shifting position and looking like this, and you can pull all that in and use it to govern the level at which you're addressing the entire audience. So the last thing I would say is, well, having the aim to be a good communicator is a good start. And you think, well, I could buttress that to some degree. Well, there isn't anything that you can possibly, this is the whole point of a liberal education, there isn't anything that you can possibly do that makes you more competent in everything you do than to learn how to communicate. I don't care if you're going to be a carpenter. I mean, being a carpenter, by the way, is very difficult, especially if you're a good carpenter. But if you're good at communicating as a carpenter, you're like 10 times better as a carpenter. So, and this is something that the liberal arts colleges, I think, I don't know if they've forgotten it, but they don't do a very good job of marketing. It's like, well, what's the use of a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Arts? It's like, well, you can think, you can write, you can speak, you've read something. It's like, the economic value of that is incalculable. The people that I've watched in my life who've been spectacularly successful they have skills. Clearly, that's a minimum precondition. But they're also very, very good at articulating themselves. And so whenever they negotiate, they're successful. Well, that's kind of like the definition of success in life, right? You negotiate and you're successful. It doesn't mean you win. Because if you're a good negotiator, if you're a really good negotiator, everybody walks away from the negotiation thrilled. And so then people line up to do things with you. So, and that's all dependent on your ability to communicate. So practice.
Thank you very much.
So Dr. Jordan Peterson has 3 of his tips. And now I'm going to give you 5 of mine on how to be a convincing communicator. Tip number 1. Show respect, appreciation, and listen actively. Appreciation and respect can go a long way. People will be more open to communicating with you if you convey respect for them and their ideas. Even simple actions like using a person's name will make them feel appreciated. It's also important to be respectful and considerate of other people's time. People want to know that they are being heard. Instead of just focusing on formulating a response, really listen to what the other person is saying. And don't ever interrupt his talking. Listen carefully until he finishes his talking. Then you can start your talking and say all what you want. The person speaking to you should be the most important thing at that moment. Also, when you are talking to someone on the phone, don't respond to an email or send a text at the same time. The person will know that they don't have your undivided attention. Tip number 2, make eye contact, ask questions, and paraphrase. It's important to connect with the person you are talking to, and eye contact is essential when having a meaningful conversation. Looking at the floor or out the window signifies you don't care, or bored, or are not really listening to them. But by looking to the other person in the eye, you are proving that you are interested in what they are saying. This also keeps you focused and less distracted. And by asking questions will not only help you understand what the other person is saying, but it also indicates that you are actually interested in what they are saying. This opens up the conversation and signals that you want to see them, hear them, and understand them. And if you want to show that you really understand, then paraphrasing is a great tool. All you need to do is repeat back to someone what they just said before you comment yourself. Tip number 3, cut conversation filler and be brief but specific. Get rid of conversation filler like or ah. It is not good for improving your speech or conversations. Cut them out to be more persuasive and to feel and appear more confident. One way is to start keeping track of when you say words like am or ah. You could also try simply relaxing and pausing before you speak. Trust me, those silences seem more awkward to you than they do to others. Also, you have to be brief but specific. For written or verbal communication, practice being brief, yet specific enough that you provide enough information for the other person to understand what you are trying to say. And if you are responding to an email, make sure that you read the entire email before crafting your response. With enough practice, you will learn not to ramble or give away too much information. Having said that, you should take the time to edit your messages. If you send a sloppy, confusing email, the recipient will think you don't care enough to think through your communication with them. Tip number 4, Never talk over people and validate others' thoughts and feelings. By talking over someone and interrupting his talking, what you are basically saying is, I don't care what you are saying, what I have to say is more important. And this demonstrates a real lack of respect. Don't refrain from finishing people's sentences, because by doing so you are disempowering the other person. Also, you have to validate others' thoughts and feelings. When someone feels a certain way, they feel that way for a reason, and even if you wouldn't react the same way, it's important to acknowledge the emotions they are experiencing. You don't have to agree with other person to validate them. You can make them feel important by simply letting them know that you hear what they are saying and accept their perspective. Tip number 5. Watch your tone, smile, and have a positive attitude. When you smile often and exude a positive attitude, people will respond positively to you. Even when you are talking on the phone, smile because your positive attitude will shine through, and the other person will know it. While it's sometimes necessary to be assertive, in order to make your point, don't be aggressive. There's a fine line between the two and try not to cross it. And always keep in mind that a combative tone is not in any way productive. Be confident and direct, while maintaining a calm, cooperative tone. You see, the more you pay attention to how you express yourself to others, the better you will get at communicating effectively. So give it a try and apply these tips in your day-to-day interactions, and you will be a convincing communicator instantly. Please let me know in the comment below what are your greatest challenges when it comes to communication, and how does social behavior differ between your online and offline interactions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for our next video about how to hold a deep conversation and communicate effectively with your lover. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends because more incredible content is on the way.